Hi everyone, welcome back to Beatles on Uke with me, Matt Stead. In today's lesson I'm going to teach you a beautiful chord melody version of Let It Be by the Beatles. If you haven't already seen it, check out the earlier video I did on strumming and singing this one. It deals with extended chords and gives you the total song history. So if you haven't seen it already, go and check that one out. But as for today, let's dive right into this gorgeous chord melody. I'm going to teach it you section by section, measure by measure. We're going to learn some really cool things such as different ways to play chord melody, playing chords on and off the beat, and using some lovely slides as well to really bring this one to life. Before we do anything else, let's just take a listen to my arrangement so you can see how it goes, and when you're ready, later on you can use this as a playthrough. There's no introduction on this one, so we're going to jump straight into the verse and have a look at how to do this chord melody style. You'll notice that much of the work in this one is done by my thumb. That's for a couple of reasons. Because my thumb can't bend back on itself. See how it's kind of stuck like that, whereas fingers, they can bend up and down like so. I get a warmer, bigger tone from my thumb. I'm using my thumb to pick the strings roughly where the body of the ukulele meets the neck, and notice I have roughly about a 45-degree angle. That means that when I pick notes and I do these lovely thumb rolls, that I get a nice warm tone. Notice also that when I strum down for a partial roll on a chord, that most of the movement is coming from my elbow rather than my wrist. Sometimes I'll rest my hand on the ukulele here afterwards, but the most important thing about these partial rolls, such as the one on the first proper measure, is that we strum down to wherever the melody note is. In this case, it's this G note, 3rd fret of the E string, and we dig in. So we don't play the A string, we rest our thumb on it, and we just dig in. That way the melody note comes out nice and clear. So if I play the first section of the song, just have a listen to this first half a measure or so. Do you notice that you hear that melody? Coming through really nice and clearly, and it's all just down to dragging with the thumb down like so. Now, a really good thing to do when you're learning chord melody pieces, and if you've taken any of my lessons before, you've probably heard me say this a million times, but I like to get a feel for the rhythm and just the melody on its own first, to kind of get a real feel for the song. If you ever want to find the melody line in isolation, you'll notice that generally it tends to be the highest line in terms of the tablature. That's because it's the last thing that our thumb hits so that it really rings out true. So here in this opening phrase, we have 4 G notes in a row, 2 just as normal, the third as part of a chord, but we'll just play it as is for now, and then we have a 4th. Then the melody note in the next chord is the open A, 2 more Gs, those are the 3s in the tablature, and then we're going to do a slide from 3 to 5. Don't worry too much about that slide for now, because we're going to look at something a bit more interesting with that in just a moment. But if you just get an idea of playing the melody first like so. See how that gives you the phrasing and the timing. Now you can of course count the quarter notes and eighth notes or quavers and crotchets in old language, but as I always say, another way is just to sing the melody in your head as you play the notes, and you'll find that you can play in timing a lot easier. So I'll give you an example in this first bit. In my head or out loud I might sing, "When I find myself in times of trouble." See how that matches perfectly with the melody and the timing. Now let's take a look at the chords. We have C and G in this opening. When I find myself in times of trouble. So to get the chord melody effect, we have to keep one finger on the melody note. In this case, it's this G at the start. And then we drag down with the thumb to wherever that melody note is, and then rest our thumb on the next string like so. This next chord we can strum all the way because the melody note is the open A. And then we're going to do the same thing we did with the C with this G. We're going to finger the whole G chord, but just strum the top 3 strings physically. Okay, so that gives you. Then the next bit's quite interesting. We have that slide. What we're going to do here is a chord slide. So we're going to hold down a G major chord. Our little finger pinky is going to come on the 3rd fret of the A string. And we're going to strum all the way. And then we're just going to lift off our first 3 fingers and take our little finger up to fret 5. We're only going to strum once and you'll hear the sound of the chord and then a slide. Notice we've got this finger down. See how I'm doing that? If I do it in slow-mo, these 3 off and I slide up. Okay, now this will take a fair bit of practice, but try putting that opening phrase together. It will sound something like this. Isn't that lovely? Have a little try yourself. Next up we go to this lovely A minor chord up the fretboard. I love the sound of this one. It has only 2 notes in it. This note up here, which is a C. And then also we have this note here, which is an E. The next string is an E. And the next string is a high E. So it only has 2 notes in it, which is enough to suggest an A minor chord, and it gives it a really lovely, vibrant, rich tone. And what we're going to do is we're going to strum all the way because the melody note is this high E down here on the A string. Like so. We're going to put one finger just briefly here on the 5th fret of the A string. whilst we change to this lovely F6 chord, barring the whole of the 5th fret. Now the next bit is interesting because we have a C note in the melody way up here at the 8th fret of the E string. If I play it where I'd normally play a C note down here, you'll notice it's the same note. The reason we play it up here is because we've got this bar down, I can reach up and play that C note without having to move the bar, which keeps everything nice and consistent and mellow, so we strum all the way. Hit that C note with your little finger and then we strum up to it, we keep it down. So that will sound something like this. Then we're going to go to a lovely G shape, but way up at the 7th and 8th frets. The reason it works up here for a C chord is we've taken this G shape, and if we think about the bottom 3 strings on our uke, that would give us G, G sharp A sharp, B and C. And the reason it works with all 4 strings is because a C has a G note in it and this G string open is a G. So we're going to strum that G shape all the way up here at frets 7 and 8 all the way, and then just pick the A string, keep your fingers where they are. Put your little finger down here so we get this nice F note, that's the 8th fret, and take it away. And notice we've got the note that follows afterwards. So even though the chord diagram for that second chord there looks like this, because it only uses 3 fingers, it's actually easier to keep this shape down. Just introduce that little finger, like so. And then we're just going to flatten across the 7th fret, bottom 3 strings. And we're going to hit here, this note here, way up at the 10th fret of the E string. And the reason we're hitting it there is the same for the C note we played a minute ago, because otherwise we'd have to move everything off and come down to this D note down here. But by hitting the 10th fret of the E string, I can keep this little bar down like so. So that measure will sound like this. Isn't that lovely? Really sweet. To finish that phrase, we've got those lovely 4 chords that Paul McCartney plays quickly in a row. Da, 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 da. Really lovely. It's almost like a little motif at the end of each verse, which is really sweet. Notice that before that, the last 2 notes of the last line, we're coming down 7 to 5, that's E to D. I find it easiest to use my little finger here. So I take my little finger, I pick once and slide back 7 to 5. Then I immediately go to this bar shape here for this lovely F6. Little finger comes down on the 8th fret of the E string. Take it away again. And then we're back to a C. Now you might be thinking, that's weird. On this measure we have 2 chords that are exactly the same shape and they're called 2 different things, an F6 or a D minor 7. Don't sweat the theory too much, but it's all to do with the fact that every major chord has a relative minor, which is the same set of notes just in a different order. And every major 6th chord has a minor 7th chord, which matches exactly. And we know that, don't we, if we think about it, because when we play our open strings on ukulele, we have a C6, and that can also be called an A minor 7. Now the name depends on the context. When we're playing it as an F6, it's suggesting a major F chord, so some type of F chord that's major. And when we play the D minor 7, it's coming from the basis of a D minor chord. It's kind of semantics, which you call it, but it's important too because the name choice in terms of the chord dictates what bass player might play. So we're going to get it right, and we're going to call it an F6 and a D minor 7, but just know that you just have to bar the 5th fret for both. Now this song's interesting in that it just has an A section, verses if you like, and a B section, a chorus. And we just have A, B, A, B, B, and then an outro. So basically the entire song is made out of verses and choruses apart from the outro. So once we've got this first verse under our fingers, we've got a big portion of the song. Let's have a try at it really slowly from the start. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and then we'll hit that first introductory section. Like so. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Slide. Good. To the A minor shape. F6. And then that G shape moved up to 7 and 8. Flatten down. Then we're going to slide back 7 to 5. Bar the whole of the 5th. Little finger on 10. And we come back to the C chord. Let's try that really slowly without me talking over the top. 1, 2, 3. Lovely. The next verse is almost identical. There's just a couple of notes that are different. So you notice at the start, instead of having 2 introductory notes, we've just got the 1. And that's just to match the lyrics of the song at that particular point. And then the other thing to notice is after that open chord, we've got a high C rather than a G. So the opening section, the first section we've just been playing, sounds like this. And now this section, the second verse, sounds like this. It's a subtle difference, isn't it? But it's really sweet. So we're going to play this G note, the 3rd fret of the E string, strum to it. Open chord, and then this high C note, that's one of the changes. Then we go to a G chord. You can finger the whole G chord even though it just looks like this. Just strum the top 3 strings physically. Then the chords slide. Very good. Then we come to the A minor chord, but notice this time, rather than going straight up to that 7th fret, we start with our finger on the 5th fret here, and then lift it up. Okay, that's again just because of the melody at that point has changed slightly. And then strum it as it was. Bring it back. Then we've got that lovely F6 chord again. 8th fret of the E string. This bit's just the same as before. And then that lovely G shape up at the 7th and 8th fret. Flatten down. Little finger comes back on 7 to 5. You can either slide this or you could play it as 2 notes. And then we hit that F6, little finger on 8, and resolve it back. Now that's the 2 verses. In fact, it's 50% of the song really, because those 2 verses are just repeated after the chorus. So you've done really well, guys. Remember, you can pause the video at any point. You can even slow it down. Just make sure you're really comfortable. And what I would suggest is to take a bit of time on the verse, just making sure you've got everything smooth, making sure you've got your chords right, and those slides are sounding really, really nice. Then move on to this next bit, the chorus, when you're ready. You'll notice that so far all of the chords are being played on strong beats. That means the actual numbered beats as opposed to the half beats or ands in between. I'll show you exactly what I mean. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Do you see how every chord is on a number rather than the off beats in between? What I'm going to do in the chorus is I'm going to hit those chords on the offbeat to give it a different sense of groove and flavour. And this works really well because McCartney often changes the feel of his songs in the chorus as opposed to the verses. And this really kind of accentuates that. We have these 3 notes going into the chorus, 7, 5, 3. Okay, that's E, D, C. Let it be. And notice that this last note is tied. That means it nudges into the next measure, so you only play it once and just hold it. Immediately after that, we're going to play this A minor chord with the C added. Now you can use your fingers to strum that, or you can just lightly strum down with your thumb, which is what I tend to do on this one, just to keep it simple. But we have to think about our fingers a little. So what I like to do is little finger for the 7. Then I like to use my ring finger for the 5, that's the D note. And then I pull that back to 3. And that allows me then to strum the A minor that follows quickly, like so. Okay. If I go with this finger, then I've got to rearrange for that A minor. So just plan ahead, like so. Then we're going to go way up the fretboard for an unusual G chord. We're going to do 7, 10, 12 first of all. That's E, G and A. Going really interstellar now. So 7, 10, 12. Now again, notice that that note on 12 is tied. We only need to play it once. Let it be. It's that high part there. Immediately after we hit this high A note, we're going to put down the rest of a G chord. It's an unusual looking chord, like so. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can use your little finger like I'm doing here, or what you might do is come up with your 3rd finger here, and then that smoothly allows you just to put these 2 down. Okay, now this is one of the most challenging parts of the song because we've got that offbeat feel. But if you practice it really slowly, I'm going to do the 7, 5, 3 first. Okay, it's not too bad. Just takes a bit of practice. You could go even slower. Like so. Then we're going to come right back from this 10th fret up here to the 3rd fret down here. Now you might think, why is he doing that when he's just taught us we can play a C here as well as here and we don't have to go down so far? I just like the sound of the swoop down. They call it legato. When you hit these 2 10s, do you hear if I keep my finger on? It's not quite a full slide, but you hear this descending like tube. And I really like that. I think it's really elegant. And then as soon as you hit this 3, the C note, you're going to come in with an F chord on top like this. Okay, so that gives us. Now notice there we've got another one of these chord slides. So after I hit that F chord, I'm going to slide up to the 5th fret. So I'm only strumming once, but I hear the sound of a chord and 2 notes, which is really nice. So that's. Now this next bit looks super fancy. You can just play this really simply using your thumb like this. Okay, another tied note there, so only one of those notes at the 7th fret. But just because I think it looks really cool and really lovely, I tend to play the G string with my thumb and the A string with my 1st finger. So I get this nice, like that. And it looks really sweet. Takes a bit of practice, but if you put it together. Isn't that really lovely? Again, that's going to take a bit of practice. practice it really slowly and then build up a little bit each time you practice, a little bit faster. Okay, all right, nice. Now, what did I tell you earlier about repetition? A lot of pop music is based on repetition. Here we see it. The verses are really similar, aren't they? And then the choruses. Well, sometimes you even get a piece of music in the chorus, almost like a payoff which matches the end of the verse. That's exactly what we've got here. So this next bit should sound relatively familiar. We've got our G shape being played up at 7, 8, 7 for this C chord. Little finger going down. Flattening for that lovely G chord, reaching up to 10. So notice this is the same as the end of the verse. And then we come down 7 to 5, bar the 5th fret, little finger down on 10, and away, and then back to that lovely C. So that ending is the same as the verse. Okay? Really nice. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll play the chorus through really slowly, just so you can get an idea. Even if you can't play along yet, this will give you some idea of how it will sound and in terms of the fingering as well. So I'll go through really slowly on close cam for you. If you're ready, play along. If not, just really study what my fingers are doing so you can practice that when you're ready. Okay, so I'm going to go super slowly from this 7th fret for that descending pickup line. That will sound like this. Notice I've got the right finger for that A minor then up to 7, 10. Put these two down. Back to 10, 10 and 3. I'll use my little finger for all of this. Hit this one first. Strum and slide. Outside 2 strings. 1, 7 here. Then I'm just going to do the end of a verse, look. Isn't it lovely, that end phrase? I think that's gorgeous. Let's put that all together, okay? So 3, 4. Fantastic. Now guess what? You've basically done the whole song, because then we repeat the verses and we repeat a chorus. So you'll be absolutely fine. If you take your time and learn that chorus along with the verse, you've basically got all of the song. We do have a lovely outro to finish off. Let me just talk you through what's happening there. It's really sweet. The Beatles start with this lovely descent through the C major scale. It will sound something like this. That's literally the notes from the C major scale, starting at A and going backwards. A, G, F, E, D, C, B, open A, and then it finishes by going back to the C. It's really simple but really sweet, isn't it? And the Beatles play that 2 different ways, and it's quite hard to replicate that on the ukulele. So what we're going to do is we're going to play to the strengths of the ukulele, and I've arranged this with a really simple 2-part harmony. That just means 2 notes that sound good together. The most common 2-part harmony are notes that are a third apart. They sound really gorgeous to our ear. And when we talk about thirds, we have to include the first note that we count from. So it's not 3 intervals, it's 3 notes. So for instance, a third above a C, C, D, would be an E. Let's try another one. A third above a G, G, A, B. It would be the B. So what I do is I put a note that's a third under each note, and that complements it as a two-part harmony. I'll show you exactly what I mean. So what I'm going to do, as I play this A note, that's the 12th fret of the A string, it's an octave higher than